Illinois faces some big challenges. Today, you're about to hear a truly honest analysis of the problems we face. Equally important, you'll also hear an in-depth discussion of some practical solutions. This is your radio source for stories, the insight, and the answers you won't hear anywhere else, not on the media, and not coming from Springfield. You're listening to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project. Now, here's your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Welcome to this edition of Illinois Rising. Dan Proft. I'm co-host of Chicago's Morning Answer with Amy Jacobson, weekdays 5 to 9 a.m. on AM 560. With me as co-host on this installment is Pat Hughes, co-founder of the Illinois Opportunity Project. And Pat, Tuesday we have a veto session down in Springfield, General Assembly in session. And it looks to be a tense a few days of legislators getting together, the governor being present, considering all that's happened since the last time they were in session, the governor's signature on sanctuary state, on trans birth certificates, and of course on House Bill 40, the taxpayer financing of abortion on demand. And there are a number of other matters that the Democrats may revisit now that there are a lot of lame duck Republicans. 9 of the 15 who voted for the tax increase have announced they're not seeking re-election, as well as upset Republicans because of the governor's signature on those pieces of legislation I mentioned. So them revisiting issues, the Democrats in charge of on matters like, say, trying to cut the governor out of the collective bargaining between the state and the largest state workers union, AFSCME.
Yeah. Rauner's going to take it from both ends, Dan, because he is going to get pounded by people inside the Republican caucus because of the sanctuary state legislation. And, of course, the real big one, HB 40. People are publicly against that, Republican legislators. And like you said, there are all these lame ducks there who've decided not to face our candidates in primaries, who have decided to go out to pasture, and they can still do some damage before they get out. So the governor has got his hands full in veto session.
For more on this topic, let's talk to an actual Republican state legislator. He is actually Alan Skillicorn, Republican from East Dundee, up covering Kane and Kane County and parts of McHenry County as well. Alan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great for having me on.
And so give us your sense of how the caucus is positioned and what the disposition is as we go into veto next week, and what some of the issues are that perhaps the governor is going to have some problems with his own caucus.
Well, you can see that with the governor's leadership, or more precisely the lack of leadership, there's a complete vacuum. And you see it not just in the caucus, not just in vetoes, but in the party in general. Have you seen any petitions for a Republican treasurer or comptroller candidate yet?
No.
Literally the Republicans can't get a slate together, even though 4 years ago, the Republican Party had a Republican treasurer, had a Republican comptroller, but today we can't even field a candidate.
Well, and that actually, if I could just stop you there, that actually is remarkable, because not only did we have a candidate 4 years ago, I mean, Tom Cross came within less than a percentage point of winning that race. Michael Frerichs, he's the state treasurer, for those of you who don't know, which is just about everybody, is eminently vulnerable. And Susana Mendoza, the comptroller, is vulnerable too, and we're not even fielding candidates. That's regardless of your position on Rauner's decisions on certain pieces of legislation, as the head of the party, that's political incompetence.
Oh yeah, it's just really a symptom of vacuum of leadership. But it's worse than that going into the veto session. You've got a bunch of these, and especially some of them were Southern Illinois Republicans that voted with the tax increase. I mean, some of them right now are talking about voting to override the veto of this worker freedom bill. And this has provisions that are so bad that if you're part of a village board that votes for one of these economic development zones, you will be arrested and go to jail. Think about that for a moment. There are Republicans that are going to get on board with Democrats on a bill like that. That's just horrible for our state. It's basically putting a giant sign in front of our state like, businesses, you're not wanted. Please go away. This is anti-economic development. This is anti-business. And there are Republicans that are talking about supporting this. And that's part of it's because they're mad at the governor, but part of it's because they're already in the bed with special interests. So when we can't hold our caucus together, when our governor has basically destroyed our caucus, that's what you're left with. You're a situation where we have empowered Michael Madigan because, frankly, Governor Rauner didn't lift a finger on the tax side. Governor Rauner went along with the Democrats in St. Louis City. Governor Rauner went along with the Democrats for taxpayer-funded abortions. Where does it stop?
So, Alan, it doesn't sound like the answer to this question is yes, and it doesn't feel like it, and based on what I'm seeing and reading, I would doubt it. But is there any chance, obviously you have this veto session, you have legislative sessions next year when the governor is running for re-election, spending a lot of his own money. Is there anything he can do, or what could he do, to sort of mend those fences, or is this guy so far lost that we might as well just write this off and try to do it without him?
My recommendation would be to try to just work on flipping the House. We need 9 seats to take away the gavel from Speaker Madigan. That's where I would see a priority. I think if Republicans basically forgot about Governor Rauner, if you're a Republican committeeman and you're holding one of his petitions that's half filled out or fully filled out, and you saw what he did, I'd throw that petition away. But then I'd start working on your local races. I'd start working on these 9 Democrats that we need to flip, and those are the ones that are really going to matter. And I'd also, if you're in a district where you have a Republican that voted for the tax hike or voted for some of this stuff, you've got to get a new candidate. You've got to get someone else in there that actually represents your views.
When it comes to the governor, there's some divided opinion within Republican circles, even among those who would like him to go away and give somebody a fresh start as the nominee of the party for governor. And the divided opinion is this: let's get a candidate that's challenged in the primary if he won't walk away. And then others say, well, if he won't walk away, we should avoid a contentious primary and let him be the nominee. And as you say, see what happens, but otherwise focus down ballot like on House races. So in which camp do you fall?
I would be likely to support another candidate, but one has to come up. And I understand that it's a big commitment and someone has to give up a year and a half of their life to run for governor. It's a big deal. I can't, bend someone's arm to do it. They have to choose it, and they have to want it, and they have to be committed to doing it. And there's the financial component too. I don't think you need a lot of money to beat Governor Rauner because he's already defined himself. So, he can spend $100 million, but, how many TV ads is that going to buy or mailers is that going to buy? That isn't going to sway people. They already know who he is. They've already made up their mind. The people on the left are never going to vote for him. He's not going to earn any votes by these betrayals. All he did is lose his base. So there's a pathway for him to be beaten in the primary, and a good candidate can still win the general election. You look at the presidential race. You had the richest candidate ever with $1 billion to spend, and she couldn't win the general election for presidency. Same thing can happen here in Illinois. The right message, the right person, the right charisma can make this happen.
Alan, I've sort of lived the life of what you just talked about when I ran against Mark Kirk in 2010. And what ended up happening is there were a lot of sort of promises made and a lot of, oh, yeah, this can be done. But then the money never arrived unless I put it in or raised it. And the sort of the conservative grassroots were ostensibly helpful, but not nearly enough to carry the weight all the way through. What's different about the nature of the conservative grassroots, the Republican base, that could get a candidate elected against a guy with, $70 million in his bank account? How would that work in reality? I know it sounds right, and I agree with you that there is a path. There's no question on issues, but that has never necessarily materialized previously. It certainly didn't for me.
Well, he said we need a candidate with charisma.
No, that's true. That's true. But put aside the fact that I don't have talent, and then answer the question.
That is. It's real. You've experienced it, you've seen it, and money does matter. But you're also talking about someone who's defined. And if someone could come in and have a different message and at least get that message out, it doesn't have to be huge. But the media world has changed. The advertising world has changed. There's so many people who have cut the cord and don't have TV anymore. I don't see these J.B. Pritzker ads on TV because I cut the cord and I don't have regular broadcast television. And you know what? Broadcast television is boring. There's other things that we can do with our lives, and so many other people, especially younger people, don't sit in front of the TV and watch these political ads. So that's one thing that there's so much money wasted on that. But I still have to go back to the presidential race. You literally had a black sheep candidate come in, not spend any money with the media, and still won. Now, that person might be controversial, but that basically someone who's out there, says what's on their mind, can make a difference in today's world. The world is changing, and the idea that you need $100 million to win a state that wants change. I mean, people in Illinois want change. Speaker Madigan is very, very unpopular, and to think that Speaker Madigan's hand-picked candidate is going to be the next governor, that's just silly. There is a pathway. There's definitely a road to a reform-oriented Republican candidate to win the governor's seat.
Alan, I'll send you links to those J.B. Pritzker ads because I'd hate for you to miss out and not understand how much he is supportive of kids. So I'll send you those spots.
There's nothing like seeing a big guy in a turtleneck sweater.
Yeah, no, he fills it out quite nicely, does Spalding. He is State Representative Alan Skillicorn, Republican from East Dundee. Alan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.